Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil Live. I think I got some something playing on the background over here. How's everyone doing tonight? I'm Mike King, and this is Profiling Evil Live, and I'm looking forward to having a little bit of a discussion with you tonight. I want to thank our mods for jumping in. And mods, I want to do something in the future here. I want you to email me if you are a mod at profilingevil@gmail.com. And I'm going to see if I can talk people like you, Southern Sass, and others into coming on and just letting everybody meet you. So, Crystal Magaro, welcome. Good to have you here. I'm glad you made it. Consistent Insomniac, good to see you. And let's see, I think Griminator Patty was the first one up tonight. So, and then of course Southern Sass. Margaret Hutchins, good to see you. Nita Smith. I'm gonna bring in a new mod that we're gonna introduce tonight, and let's see if I can just bring her in right now. And Lee, you didn't have the courage to put your video on, I take it?
Hold on, sir. Let me see. Wait a minute. No, I don't know. It shows camera. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but I can't see you.
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
So, folks, we're going to have Lee call back another time when she can get her camera on. But Lee is a former Louisville police officer, investigated child crimes for a long, long time. Retired. When did you retire, Lee?
I retired in 2008.
So you've been out for long enough to know how wonderful it is to not be in the saddle with the way in which police officers have been treated the last couple of years.
Yes, sir.
It has been interesting, but your career was long, and we appreciate it. Why don't you tell everybody what the focus of your last decade of law enforcement was all about?
Well, I worked patrol for about 10 years, and then I went to crimes against children. And at the time, they were separated, so you either work physical or, I don't know, or essay crimes, because I'm not sure what YouTube will flag, so I don't want to say
Oh, you know what? I think at Profiling Evil, so that's sex assault. She was working children cases,
Yes.
folks, working sexual assault. And you know what? YouTube used to flag me all the time, Lee. And I think after looking at all my videos and me reaching back out, I think they realized we take a little higher road here on Profiling Evil, and we haven't been hit for a long time. So I'm knocking on wood, but hopefully that's the case.
Well, good. That's okay. So yeah, so I did work some physical cases, but my main thing was sexual cases. So, I worked sex crimes against children for about 5 years, and then I went on to homicide, and then we were lucky enough I could retire at 20 and out. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Lee, thanks for jumping on. It's great. I want to get into
you.
our topic tonight. But folks, our mods are incredible. I just am so appreciative to them. And Lee, welcome aboard. Thanks for jumping in and helping out.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, see ya. So yeah, there you go, folks. Lee is going to help us out. But again, I want to just thank our mods, and good to see a few folks here. Don Marie, good to see you here. Nanny Mo is here. I've learned a lot. Hello, Mike. Yep. Thank you so much. Good to see you. And, tonight we're going to be talking about the Murdoch case. We're going to share a couple of things. I did a couple of court TV appearances to talk through the case and all that while trying to hold down a day job. So thankfully at night, I have some time to kick back and do some things. Crystal, how you doing? It's great to see you. And Southern Sass, thanks so much again, as always. Great to see you all here. So let's get talking about Murdoch and what's been going on in the case today. and yesterday, because yesterday I thought was a pretty interesting day. So without any further ado, let's jump into this.
They did him wrong. I did him wrong. If the only question surrounding these two statements has to deal with whether Alex Murdaugh made an admission or a confession, it means a whole lot. But if you're talking about a guy who the prosecution says staged the murder of his wife and son, they did him wrong is an incredibly powerful behavioral statement, and I'm going to tell you why. Well, hey, everybody, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and as we enter the second day of testimony for the defense side, Murdoch's former law partner, Mr. Ball, Mark Ball, testified about the fact that he never really knew Alex Murdaugh. Now, his reasoning is that he worked with the guy for 32 years. They did things together, but he had no idea that he was addicted to drugs, that he was stealing money from his clients and from the law firm. His question was simple. Does that make him a murderer? Well, the prosecution is doing an excellent job of cross-examining Mr. Ball, and they're doing a great job in bringing out the fact that Alex Murdaugh is a liar. That is a huge win for the prosecution, in my opinion. The former law partner also testified that Alex Murdaugh, was a liar. Now, the former law partner also testified that he is absolutely sure that it's Alex Murdaugh's voice on Paul's video at the kennel. That's more proof that Alex Murdaugh is a liar. Now remember, Murdoch said that he wasn't down at the kennels that night. He said he was taking a nap and then he went to check on his mom, came back and discovered the murders. Well, again, more proof that he's a liar. Now, the defense made a point of asking Mr. Ball that if the I did him wrong statement made in the interview with SLED agents was I did him wrong or they did him wrong. Well, just like Buster Murdaugh said, the law partner said that he believed Murdaugh was saying they did him wrong. Well, some people are chalking this up to a win for the defense, that Alex Murdaugh wasn't confessing to a murder. I'm looking at it a little bit differently. If, in fact, Murdaugh staged this entire murder, including using 2 weapons, wouldn't it be a powerful statement for him to make when he's interviewing with SLED agents on that first night to say they did him wrong?
You know, I gotta correct something too, because I keep saying in my mind I did him wrong, and you know what, Patty W, you are absolutely right. I did him so bad, or they did him so bad, and thanks for calling that out. I think it's the same conceptually comment though, and the question becomes, are you seeing much different? And I want to see what you all think in here. Did he say they did him wrong, or did he say I did him wrong? Again, I think it's interesting that the defense has come out now with 2 witnesses who say, oh yeah, I clearly am hearing they did him wrong. That's really interesting, and I don't know how we can have such polar opposites. So what do you think? So Proven Spooky says, I think to me it sounds like I did him wrong. Annie T says, I did him wrong. Yeah, this is interesting. Let's jump back in.
Perfectly with this scenario that the prosecution says he stepped up. Now, the statement is part of the totality of the evidence, and it's the state's responsibility to put all of the physical, the forensic, the verbal, nonverbal, the behavioral, and circumstantial evidence together and in front of the jury in a way that makes sense, easy to understand, and makes it easy for them to visualize in their mind. I mean, normal folks can visualize these things if it's laid out that way. They can think about the way in which he committed the homicides and the way he tries to get away with them. You know, I rocked back in my chair when Mr. Ball said that Alex was a good lawyer who helped his clients a lot. Well, he must not have been speaking about the family of the housekeeper that he was representing, when he, yes, did in fact get a whole bunch of money from the insurance company, but he stole it and kept it for himself. The family didn't get anything.
Now, I want to just pause there for a minute and see what you think about that. I mean, I that just rocked me in my chair when his former law partner said, "Oh yeah, he was great for his clients. He got them lots of money." And then I'm just thinking about Gloria, for instance. Her family sure didn't get any of that money. This thing has been really interesting, but I want to step back for just a moment, because if I think most of us are wrong, and he actually did say they did him so bad, that as a profiler doesn't bug me too much, because think about the timing of that statement. In the car with police, with his former law partner later, because I think his law partner testified today that 3 times Murdoch said they did him wrong. Buster says they did him wrong, they did him so bad. It's kind of like training a monkey, getting me to remember things correctly, isn't it, folks? But here's the cool thing, is if he in fact did stage this entire thing like the defense is saying he did, wouldn't that be the perfect statement to make, is they did him wrong? Because he's already used 2 weapons. He's established the possibility that there were 2 shooters, and now he's saying they. Why on earth would he say that? Most of us would be saying, who on earth would do this? And I don't know. What would you be saying? Would you be saying, who on earth would do this? And so I don't know. And Renam Clardy, if I got that right, check your volume. I don't know, folks. Let me know if you're having problems hearing me and if you're hearing the video, because I don't know how necessarily to fix it, because they're turned up as loud as they can. You might have to turn up on your end. Let's jump back in.
Well, as today's trial continues, let's take a look back at yesterday's testimony with Buster Murdaugh and the defense team's forensic expert. How do you think they scored on their delivery? Was it a win for the defense or for the prosecution? And as we begin, I want to make mention that the judge started out yesterday with criticizing the defense attorney who made that stupid retweet and that caught the judge's attention. Let's listen.
Secondly, I've been receiving over the past 2 to 3 days emails concerning a social media post by Mr. Griffin commenting upon witnesses' testimony and quality of the investigation by the state.
Now, folks, I'm going to stop right there for just a second. I'm going to back it up just a hair, because I want you to look at Alex Murdaugh staring at Mr. Griffin when the judge hits this point in the discussion.
Griffin commenting upon witnesses' testimony and quality of the investigation by the state. And it appeared on my Twitter feed this morning. Mr. Griffin, is this part of your defense strategy, or?
Your Honor, all I did was retweet an article that was published in the Washington Post. I didn't put any comment. I didn't make any statement. I just retweeted the article that's in the newspaper. That's all I did.
You know, we had an NBA player who retweeted an article, professional basketball player who retweeted an article that resulted in him being suspended from the NBA for about 10 days and cost him about $10 million in salary. So retweeting is the same as, to some, as if your tweet. It appeared, I didn't know that, well, I mean, I'm not a Twitter friend of yours, but it just appeared on my under Twitter. First thing up this morning was you. You know, we had the lawyer who had a similar name to a person with a similar name to our lawyer witness, and it was someone else by the same name. In your interest, your instance, it's your name and your picture. So.
I did retweet the article, no question about it.
Yeah, well, I've been reviewing Rule 3.6 regarding that, whereas the rule does not specifically state that the lawyers are prohibited from criticizing witnesses during the course of the trial or commenting on a case that they're actively participating in. I think it goes against the spirit of the law, of the rule, and it doesn't pass the field test. So that's, to quote Judge Keinerd, it doesn't pass the field test. So you should not post or repost anything that would give me or the general public, or hopefully never land in the hand of the juror who, the jurors were instructed not to discuss the case, and obviously that did not extend to the lawyers, but it's not a good practice, and it could easily lead to modification of our rules that might specifically address something like that. So I'll leave it at that.
I understand, Your Honor. I will not retweet anything or tweet anything until this trial is over.
Yes, sir. Anything else before the jury comes?
So, what do you think about that, folks? Let's kind of recap what happened. So, Mr. Griffin, the defense attorney backing up Harpootlian, sent out a tweet that was based on an article that was written that said that in the mind of the journalist who wrote the article, that the state wasn't doing a very good job. I'd love to see if our in-house counsel happens to weigh in on any thoughts on that. Certainly seems inappropriate. And frankly, if the prosecution had done that with an article saying the defense wasn't doing a very good job, I wonder if that wouldn't become an issue for an attempt to get an appeal saying that the jury was unduly influenced by this thing. So, and a bunch of you are chatting in here about this judge who is he's pretty no nonsense, and he's holding this court to a pretty high standard, although I think he blows it in just a minute, and we'll talk about that. You might also spend a little time, if you get a moment, and look up some of the things that Harpootlian has been accused of saying in media reports that also seem a little bit off base to me. And I guess I just don't understand. I mean, especially watching a trial in the South where there is such gentlemanly conduct most of the time when you listen to people speaking to and from each other, that people would think some of these things, especially people that I believe should know better, would do some of these goofy things, including what we're going to talk about next.
Nobody seems to want to talk about the fact that in the middle of the courtroom testimony, the defense attorney, while holding the .300 blackout rifle, a rifle that's symbolic of the weapon used to kill Maggie, and he might have even done something similar with the shotgun, pointed the weapon toward the prosecution, and then in an attempt to be humorous, said, "Tempting."
It's the, I think it's like an exemplar .300 blackout rifle.
And this is the weapon, or weapon like this, that the shooter would have had.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to sort of get a visual of. How about come down here so I don't point at you? Or maybe let me come up there and come this way. Okay? Why don't you get back? I'm sorry. So I'm not 5'2" or 5'4". I think you said 5'2" to 5'4". But position me. Tempting, but I don't know how I can do this so I'm not pointing at somebody.
I found nothing humorous about that, and I can't believe the judge and frankly the prosecution didn't throw their arms in the air and scream foul. I'm wondering why nobody is talking about that little episode. And before I leave,
So I want to stop there for a minute because I was really troubled by that. You know, with the amount of discussion in the media about weapons and the mass shootings, the individual homicides that have occurred, the challenges against the right to bear arms, all of these things that are going on. Why would anyone be dumb enough to do that? But most importantly, I guess I'm really frustrated why he wasn't immediately censored by the court on that deal. Nonetheless, I'm letting my personal opinions get in the way. And you know what? I guess I've learned by mistakes that too often something that I think might sound funny doesn't taste very good when it comes out. And we just ought to have a little more discipline than I think was shown there. But let's jump into another thing that really bothered me. And I'll tell you what, Michelle, I'd love to know your thoughts on this one coming up right now.
questions that I had after yesterday's testimony, I want to just mention that I was blown away that Buster Murdaugh has been allowed to sit in that courtroom for 3 weeks hearing every witness testify. Why on earth, if he was going to be a witness himself, was he allowed to sit there? Why did the prosecution or the court allow him to sit in the courtroom and hear what other people had to say, potentially structuring his own comments in his father's favor? But enough of that. Let's get into the actual testimony of yesterday. During day one of the defense, Alex Murdaugh's defense team came out swinging, just like we predicted. Their opening salvo was this 1-2 punch that began with Buster Murdaugh and ended with their forensics expert. Now remember, Buster is the young man who was approached by the Daily Mail back in November and asked the question, presumably you're supporting your father. Well, the surviving Murdaugh emotionally replied back to the media, "You have no right to presume anything. I don't want to see it written anywhere that I'm supporting my father." Well, I think it can be written that he sure testified for his father's defense team today. Now listen, folks, hit that like and subscribe button and make sure you're sharing Profiling Evil with your friends and your contacts.
I'm going to pause here for a second, folks, because our legal counsel has jumped in and it looks like maybe her phone froze. So I'm going to kick her out of the studio and we're going to come back as soon as she comes back on, having a few technical difficulties, it looks like, tonight. So let's continue on.
Buster was called to the stand remarkably after he sat through 3 weeks of listening to other people. He added a few things that might help Alex when he talked about the guns and the fact that they were left around the property loaded. He also talked about how the family would often put different loads in the weapons in order to have better impact when they were hunting. Well, what this told me was the family had a habit of having alternating kinds of rounds, the kind of thing that actually happened to kill Paul. Past behavior is predictive of future behavior. So, did Alex Murdaugh instinctively load the weapon to produce a buckshot birdshot round, the same round that killed Paul? Or did the killer just happen to grab a weapon that was lying around loaded? But the most intriguing thing to me in Buster's testimony was when he said that he packed his dad's bags that night after the murder, and that he probably was responsible for that t-shirt that got knocked to the floor. I found this really interesting, and I really liked the picture that Vinnie Politan painted last night as we talked on Court TV. Let's listen and catch my response.
Did you help him pack?
I did, yes, sir.
What'd you do to help him pack?
Got his bag and went into the closet, grabbed some t-shirts, grabbed some shorts, grabbed toilet kit, put it in the bag and left.
Where did you get the t-shirts from?
Got them from the closet, and there's like wooden shelves up on the wall, and I was getting the t-shirts from there.
Were there a lot of t-shirts on the shelf?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether or not one of the t-shirts fell on the floor when you were packing?
I don't know whether one of them fell on the floor or not, but I mean, certainly could have happened.
There you go. And joining us now, Salt Lake City, Utah, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King. All right, Mike, let me start with you. What picture do you have in your mind of what is happening and why there's a wet towel and a t-shirt on the floor there?
I like the way that you painted it, Vinny, and I wish that the prosecution would have done that the first time around. I hope when they close that they do that. You painted a picture that I can visualize, that he comes into the house after the homicides, that he's in a rush. He pulls off the pants that we know he was wearing, or at least the same kind of cream-colored khaki pants that he's wearing in the image out by the tree, jumps in the shower, makes a mess, grabs that t-shirt, pulling others off. I mean, I do it all the time when I'm grabbing towels out of the cabinet. I pull the other one that's next to it. And then he heads out the door. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that the defense is going to have to tackle at the end of the day. Is you can come up with all kinds of reasons that t-shirt's on the floor, but just before that homicide, he was wearing khakis and a blue shirt. After, he's wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and the shower and the t-shirt make it a whole lot of splaining left to do.
Now, you mentioned the blue shirt and the khakis. To me, this issue has become unnecessarily confusing, and it's because of some of the strange testimony we've had relative to this. So let me play for you what Buster Murdaugh had to say about that Snapchat video where his father is by the tree and his brother is recording him.
Buster, you recognize that shirt?
Yes, sir.
What kind of shirt is it?
It's like a, short sleeve button-down shirt.
Is it a Columbia shirt?
No, it doesn't look like a Columbia shirt.
What color is it?
It's blue.
Okay. Did your dad have a foam green Columbia sports shirt?
Maybe.
Okay. Is this it?
No, this is blue.
Now, the reason that's significant is because of the testimony of Blanca, the housekeeper, because she was there the morning Alec woke up and went off to work, and she folds and washes his clothes. Here's what she said.
You say this is a shirt like a Columbia shirt, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, a Columbia shirt, don't they have a logo that says Columbia?
Yes, sir. You know, the sleeve or...
You see one on here?
I don't see anything on the shirt. The style of shirt is the Columbia style shirt.
It's not a... You're not saying it was a brand name Columbia shirt. You're saying it was a Columbia style shirt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your testimony again is this is not the shirt he walked out with that morning.
He did not walk out with that shirt that morning.
But those could be the khakis he walked out with that morning.
Possibly, yes.
Okay. And when you say you never saw that shirt again, you did see those khakis again, did you not?
Yes, sir. I washed those khakis. They were in the bathroom. I'm assuming it was the same pair because he only had a few that he wore.
Right.
It is baffling, but he had more wardrobe changes than I had at my wedding. and I had a bunch at my wedding. I had a bunch of wardrobe changes. It was amazing.
Wow.
You know,
Hey,
go ahead,
Vinny,
Mike.
Can I just want to pop in here too. That's really troubling to me, because if he in fact has taken this nap that he's taken, he is sweating profusely during that nap in order to get up, take that shower, and head out the door in a hurry. Or he came right in, showered, and then fell asleep, and then miraculously woke up and ran out the door. It's just all too much happening in too short a time.
Folks, it's well, hey, I want to bring in a special guest. Michelle, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm sorry I missed the last few minutes. I'm battling a dead battery.
Oh, yeah, it looks like something bad happened. So, folks, this is Profiling Evil's in-house counsel. Michelle, I'm really interested from a lawyer's perspective, how you felt about those first three things that happened. And I'm going to just put them in order and let you maybe chat about them from your perspective. First is, of course, the tweet by Griffin, and how you feel about that. Let's just talk about that for a moment.
My immediate reaction was that the defense counsel is working really, really hard to obtain a mistrial.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I think that was the whole purpose of retweeting that.
That is really interesting because, folks, what Michelle's saying, I hadn't even really thought of, Michelle. I was thinking more of what the long term was down the road, but this could effectively stop everything today and say we're going to have to do a do-over, couldn't it?
Yeah, if it got in the hands of a jury or anywhere close to a jury member, it would be an automatic mistrial.
Yeah, that is really interesting. So now tell me, if put your old prosecutor hat on, if you'd had one of your support prosecutors do this in the middle of a trial, how would you have reacted as the lead prosecutor?
Nobody would have seen that reaction but the person who did it. It would have been a very private reaction, and our story would have been, oops, sorry.
Yeah, I just looked at that and it was just fraught with challenge. Now, if the defense or if the prosecution had done that and Murdoch was convicted, that could have lasting effect, couldn't it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It probably would result in a new trial after appeals if the prosecution did it.
Such a huge thing. And I thought the judge was just, boy, I'll tell you what, he brought him to the principal's office today, didn't he?
He did. I love that judge.
Yeah. So let's go to point number 2 that's been really bugging me, and that was Harpootlian swinging that rifle and pointing it toward the prosecution. It was pointed in the air. It wasn't pointed directly at him, but it was pointed their way. And I'll tell you, as somebody who spent a lot of time on a range with a bunch of cops, nobody did that. Nobody did it jokingly.
I felt
anyway,
like,
what was your thought?
well, I initially felt like it was an accident. He made a mistake, and then when he realized his mistake, he tried to make a joke out of it. But it's just not really funny. And I agree with the commenters on Court TV that shows how out of touch he is with current events and the issue in the workplace. It's just not a joke anymore.
Yeah, and what about the sensitivity of a woman who was shot 5 times, twice in the head, with
Yes.
that very style of weapon?
Yeah. And if it made the jury mad, they will punish the client, not the attorney.
Yeah. Crazy. And then the question that I had, that I know I've seen happen sometimes out of compassion, but tell me what your thoughts are on allowing Buster to sit in trial knowing that he's going to testify.
I think it's a state law issue. In Texas, we have to do what they call invoking the rule to have witnesses excluded from a trial. So everybody's allowed to sit in unless the attorneys invoke the rule to have the witnesses excluded from previous trial. I've noticed that many of the witnesses that have testified have been sitting in that courtroom. Most of the SLED agents that have testified have gotten up off of a back row. So I don't know if they've been there an extended time or not, but I think that Buster being able to sit there through it all is probably a state law issue. They may not even have a procedure in South Carolina for excluding witnesses. I think they probably would have done it in this case if they had one. So that's probably not unusual for trials in that state. I thought it was strange. I would have tried to exclude him if possible. But my other thought about Buster being a witness is that unlike most of the other local witnesses, Buster is not a disinterested party. You know, I initially wanted to give him a lot of the benefit of the doubt because of what all he's been through, losing his mom and brother. But at the same time, he's got a huge financial stake in his father getting off of as many of those crimes as possible. So
that's really
his dad
important.
spending the rest of his life behind bars doesn't help Buster's finances in the least. Maybe they're all squandered, or maybe there's enough family money there that Buster may have an inheritance. But I hope that somebody points out to the jury that Buster may be stuck in the middle from an emotional perspective, but from a financial perspective, he needs his dad to beat this thing. So I thought that he was a very interested witness rather than disinterested.
And I'm going to add to that one other dynamic, and that is he's lost his entire family, and emotionally, you know, that's the last rung. And you know what, you hear it in domestic violence cases, you hear it when there are abuse cases. That's still a parent, and you still love that individual. You certainly may not believe or love what they did, but yeah, I mean, that's we're seeing it over and again on cases where a spouse will kill the other spouse, and the children will stand behind them. And we can think of some even recently that fit that role. So
I have a little bit more sinister thought about that when I let myself go down this road. But in my opinion, if there were two shooters, I think one of them could have easily been Buster, and Alec is taking the fall so that Buster can avoid criminal charges for being involved. I don't know how far the apple falls from the tree right there. If Buster is just like his dad and was involved in a lot of the stuff with his dad, or if he's truly an innocent child. I've seen a lot of comments from locals that talk about him being kicked out of school for not good reasons. And so it makes me wonder if maybe he could have even been involved, because he certainly showed a lack of emotion, and that could be that he just hasn't processed any of it yet, or who knows? We don't know those people. He could be just as bad as his dad.
Well, and I've read those same things, and I'm going to leave that exactly where they were, is other people speculating. But you have to consider all of those possibilities and follow it. So anyway, Michelle, thank you. Anything else you want to chat about before we call it a night?
I have two more things. One thing about the issue of Harpillion pointing the gun at the prosecutors. I think that everybody would like to have seen the judge jump in and scold him in front of the jury, but the timing and the place for a reprimand or for the prosecution to complain is after the trial to the state bar. So it didn't surprise me that nobody in the courtroom showed any urgency or offense at the time, but after the trial, there may be some repercussions to him for doing that, especially if one of the listeners on here put up a South Carolina law that it's illegal to point a gun at somebody. There could be some pretty harsh consequences for him doing that, but that would all come way after this trial is over.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
you had
then
one more?
The other thought that I had was what is America, what is society going to do if the jury comes back and says not guilty for Paul's murder, but guilty for Maggie's murder? Then what happens? Because they certainly could do that. The defense has spent an awful lot of time talking about how bad SLED did on Paul. They haven't talked any about how SLED did bad on Maggie. So I don't know why they think the jury can't split the baby and find him guilty on one count, but they can.
Yeah, really interesting. Well, thanks for just muddying the water a little bit
Well, sure.
more. That's
what,
exactly
that's
what
I do.
that's exactly what I expect from my legal counsel. So, thank you. I hope you're warm down there. I want you to know I shoveled snow 3 times today. So
It was 80 here today.
Oh
80
yeah,
and sunny.
no,
So.
it's not that here, but I'm so grateful. We're gonna have water in the pond this year, so my granddaughters can catch some trout. So
We will too, because we rely on the snow melt from your area. So we'll be good.
yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you for letting me on.
Oh heavens, you're always invited. Thank you. So, folks, Michelle is just amazing and has become such a good friend. And I always have to remind you, if you haven't gone back, go back into our content list and look for a serial killer used to read bedtime stories to me. You'll learn the story of how Michelle and I came to know each other. Her father was a police officer, and don't miss a serial killer read bedtime stories to me. It's a lot of fun. So a little gratuitous commercial here. We're going to jump into it. It's really short, and then we're getting back into this thing. So I'll keep reading your comments, and thank you so much for hanging in there. Hey, hit that like and subscribe button and make sure you become a part of the family here, folks.
Profiling Evil, and I wanted to take a minute and tell you about our affiliate, Truth Finder. It's a company that I've been using for a couple of years to research cases and individuals. Now, Truth Finder uses publicly available information, but it brings it together in a way that provides answers quickly and concisely. You can use Truth Finder to check out your new babysitter, or maybe that new love in your life, or just to find somebody you haven't seen for an awfully long time. Truth Finder provides these comprehensive background reports, telephone reports, email reports, and even location information. So when you go in and examine the information in their search results, you're going to find personal information, contact information, and places where your target has lived, not only historically, but currently. Now, all this can seem really overwhelming and maybe a little invasive to you. So I want to make sure you understand all of the information is publicly available information. Truth Finder just has an algorithm that brings it all together in a way that makes it a whole lot easier to access. Now, Truth Finder is an affiliate, which means we get a tiny commission when you sign up. It's about enough to buy a Diet Dr. Pepper, frankly. But I want you to know that I use it every single day, and I hope that you'll take a moment and sign up with them. I've given you a discount code, and it's down in the link below, so make sure you grab it. EVIL10. And remember, you can cancel this thing at any time. Now, I hope you'll give them a try, but before you do, let's just jump back into today's discussion. Well, folks, I hope you'll take a moment, enter your thoughts down below on whether Buster helped or hurt his father's case yesterday. And as you do that, let's shift to what became, in my opinion, the biggest and longest and at times the boringest testimony of the day, the expert forensic witness who felt that Murdoch couldn't have been responsible for killing Maggie and Paul. His reasoning, by the way, his name's Mike Sutton, his reasoning was based on evidence that he got from SLED and that he collected on his own, including 3D measurements and a 3D crime scene with the FARO-scan type equipment. That's where they send thousands of lasers out and collect and recreate a scan of the scene. Now, this crime scene expert shared a lot of opinions based on those measurements. There were 2 things that stood out to me as intriguing, though. First was his assessment that the buckshot pellet found in a tree outside the window where Paul was shot had actually passed through Paul's body, through the window, and then into the tree. Now, I've asked a number of people if anyone knows if that ball was collected out of the tree. I think it would contain forensic evidence to support that it had passed through Paul's body, if in fact it had. So if any of you have any information on that, please let me know, because I can't seem to get an answer. In fact, the question, when it's raised, comes back with a shrugged shoulder. Nobody knows. So if you know about that bullet and whether it was recovered, I'd love to know. Again, I found it as a really interesting piece of evidence and frankly of testimony. But the most intriguing thing to me was the expert's opinion that the suspect in this case was between 5'2" and 5'4" tall. He further opined that the killer would have had to have been shooting from the hip. Well, holy cow, that is a whole bunch of supposition. Listen as Vinny and I discussed that on Court TV last night.
Speaking of too short, is Alex Murdaugh too tall to have committed this murder? When we come back, we'll talk about the expert testimony today that would eliminate Alex Murdaugh as a suspect in the case. Very awkward is the only way I can describe that angle and the way the gun's being held. That's the prosecution expert explaining. Now let's take a listen to the defense expert on this same issue, because the angle of the shot is what it is. The question really is, you know, how would you have to hold the gun? How tall would you have to be? Let's watch.
Okay, tell us how you get to a height for the shooter.
So for the purposes of what I've been showing you is that I started putting different height people in the trajectory analysis. And so what I've been showing you is a person that's 5'2".
Versus how tall? The shooter's how tall?
5'2".
Could be someone a little taller crouching down a little bit?
Could be.
5'3", 5'4"?
Yes. In my opinion, it's very unlikely that he fired that shot.
Very unlikely, but not impossible.
Hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and we just passed 150,000 subscribers.
Sorry, folks, we're going to skip through that. Just thanking everybody for helping us get to 150,000. And so thank you so much for being a part of all of this.
You're going to get them in about May or so, but we really appreciate it if you're a channel member. So please consider joining. You know, running a YouTube channel isn't cheap. And while we don't receive the fit the lives of other people, in the last couple of years, we've buried a number of people on cases where we've investigated those. We've used the money to pay for scholarships to train law enforcement officers in child sexual abuse investigations. And we're currently pushing everything we've got toward building a new children's advocacy center. That's a place where kids can be interviewed forensically and psychologically if they've been a victim of a crime. It's a place where they can also get their feet back under them as they return to society. So we're really proud of that. So when you purchase my books or you donate to Profiling Evil, even if it's donations through PayPal or other means, you're helping out in a number of different ways. So thanks for your support. And again, please hit that like and subscribe button and share Profiling Evil with all your friends. Don't forget to check us out on Profiling Evil podcasts, out on your favorite podcast.
Epistolized.
Mike, what are your thoughts about this one?
You know, I go back to this, especially the 300 blackout, more of a pistolized assault weapon, rifle. And I don't want to offend anybody by saying that term, but that thing could be held at waist level. I did some measurements on myself today, Vinny, and I'm almost 6 feet tall, just hair under. And that's about the lower rib cage on me to hold it at that angle and to try to get it up. This is a whole lot of supposition about how the person was firing the weapon. And people that practice and do combat training and other kinds of things, they don't always shoot at the shoulder level. They don't always shoot with the weapon just under the armpit. Sometimes that thing's brought up with the arm brought to a 90-degree angle and shooting directly on, like you see on some of the movies.
Well, the expert witness said, quote, "In my opinion, it's very unlikely that Alex could have fired that shot," adding that the shooter was about 5'2", within a degree of engineering certainty, close quote. I don't know what that means, but anyway, as that was all happening and we were talking about it on Court TV, a tweet came into Court TV during the broadcast from somebody who asked, well, is it possible that Alec or the killer could have fired that weapon from an ATV? Wow, great insight. Same as the insight of people saying could have been that he dropped to a knee in a shooter stance, or that he was trying to manipulate to get target acquisition. Let's listen to my comments.
Mike King, let me float this by you. One of our loyal viewers, Bob, said perhaps he's the killer, whoever it is sitting in an ATV firing this weapon. Would that make sense?
What a great thing a tip to pass on. Is it possible? And that certainly is possible. It's possible that the barrel at a certain length was just lifted an inch or two, which could have changed the entire opinion that people are having of what the starting point was on that thing. But I like that idea about the ATV. I also like the idea of kneeling or just trying to move to get a better angle for the shot, because these targets weren't standing still and they weren't waiting to be shot. They were probably doing everything they could to avoid and evade what was going to happen to them.
Well, this case is proving to be a wild one, full of twists and turns. So how are you thinking along the lines of whether the defense is winning or the prosecution is winning in getting this evidence out? And hey, folks, since we're talking about height in South Carolina, did you know, according to national statistics, that the average height of residents in South Carolina is approximately 5'7"? Now, that puts South Carolina 29th in terms of having one of the higher measurements of height for state residents. But here's what's really important. Remember, the defense is saying the killer was 5'2" to 5'4". Well, the average male person's height in South Carolina is 5'10.3". The average female, 5.4.3 inches. So we're really getting into some anomalies if in fact this killer was that short. Frankly, I'm not buying it. What do you think? Put your comments down below. More importantly, how would you be voting if you were sitting on the jury today? Hey, thanks for listening, and we'll keep you updated as more information becomes available. Again, please hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell so you're getting all of our notifications. I think you'd really enjoy being a member of Profiling Evil's family. So please share us with your friends and please subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And make sure you're downloading our audio podcasts at Profiling Evil on your favorite podcast platform. And as we end, I want to thank the entire Court TV team for the chance to join them each week as we talk about these interesting cases that are happening across the country. Hey, please make sure you're taking time to express your thoughts in the comments below and consider joining our channel memberships. We'll see you all soon at the next crime scene.